Welcome to the NonProfit Voice, a podcast series brought to you by NonProfit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. In each episode, we're going to sit down with leaders of nonprofit organizations, the people responsible for paving the way for our sector, along with key technology strategy partners who are transforming our industry. Here at the NonProfit Voice, we'll have refreshing conversations in which we will all learn more about the convergence of nonprofit and technology. Be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website to find more episodes of the NonProfit Voice. And you can download all of the NonProfit Voice episodes on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. We will have all the links down below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the NonProfit Voice. I'm Nhu Te, Editor-in-Chief of NonProfit Pro, and I'll be your host for today's episode. And as always, thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm sure that we can all agree that 2020 really threw a bunch of curveballs at us. And with the pandemic basically forcing all of us to learn how to work remotely and communicate virtually and do it efficiently and effectively, I thought I would bring two thought leaders onto the podcast today to talk about how they pivoted their staff in a very unusual year. So please join me in welcoming Héctor Colón, CEO of Lutheran Social Services of Wisconsin and Upper Michigan, along with Jeff Jowdy, president of Lighthouse Counsel, a frequent NPP contributor, and one of our respected editorial board members. Hey, you two, how are you guys doing today?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. It's great to be here and to be here with Héctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear it. So before we jump into today's topic, I usually get us started by getting our audience more acquainted with our guests on the show. So Héctor, can you tell us more about yourself, about the organization you work for, and a little bit how you got into the nonprofit sector?
Yeah, I had a significant event happen in my life on one summer day in 1982, where I was bullied. I was called a spick, the N-word, and was told to get out of the neighborhood. I recall coming home with a bloody nose one day, and my father said, "What happened? ¿Qué te pasó?" I told him I got hit, and the person called me some bad names. My father took me to the boxing gym because he wanted me to learn how to defend myself. Right away, my boxing coach at the time, who's Shorty, who's really a giant in my life and a giant in this community, looked at my father and he said, "Your son is a natural. He's going to become a champion." And he was right. I ended up becoming a 7-time national champion in 6 different weight classes and traveled all over the world with the United States national boxing team. And in 1992, I was favored to go to the Olympics, but I was not focused, mind, body, and spirit, and I lost in the Olympic trials, and I was devastated. I wasn't hearing from the big-time promoters about making millions of dollars, and I was searching, and I was hurting. On December 27, 1992, I bought my first Bible and gave my life to Christ. 6 months later, I fight the same guy, and this time I knock him out in the first round for the U.S. Championship. Promoters came back and wanted to turn me pro, but I put it up through a year of prayer and discernment and decided to leave the sport. But then I learned from my mother that inspired me. When my father left to Puerto Rico when I was 12 years old, I never heard my mother complain. Not once did I hear her complain. She would work 2 and 3 jobs to support the family. Not only the family, she would support my sister, who had a severe persistent mental illness, and her boyfriends, some of which had mental illnesses as well. And she would make sure that they would have food, had clothes on their backs, and fed them, and also made sure that they would take their medications, do everything a case manager would do without receiving a dime. So I learned about my mother through her humble servant leadership, and it really inspired me to get into the sector, the social services sector, that really improves the health and well-being of so many lives. And for us, in my role right now, in the state of Wisconsin and Upper Michigan.
Wow, what an incredible story, Héctor. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much.
It's a privilege to have you on and learn more about you too.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Happy to be on here.
Great. So Jeff, I know a little bit about you, but and our audience, I'm sure, knows a little bit about you too. But why don't you, share some more about yourself for the people who may not know you so well?
Well, and Hector, what a powerful story, and thank you for sharing that. I have the honor of being president of Lighthouse Counsel. We were a consulting firm that works with nonprofits in fundraising, strategic planning, and board development across the country. We have offices in Athens, Georgia, and Franklin, Tennessee. And you had asked how I got into the nonprofit sector. It was by accident, probably a bit like Hector, following the example of my parents in community service. And actually my first capital campaign was during my college years when I was president of a debate society, and we had a building to restore. And little did I know, fast forward a few decades, that that would be my career. So
fabulous, and I'm sure that's kind of the route for a lot of people who find themselves in the sector. It's always a long and windy road and unexpected, but usually very happy to be in there.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So earlier, I talked about how the pandemic really brought on big challenges for nonprofits. And, one of the challenges, one that we're going to talk about today, is how nonprofits can maintain or even strengthen internal communications among leadership and its staff, all while working remotely. So Hector, I'd love for you to kick us off. What was your organization's strategy in handling, communications within the organization during the pandemic?
Yeah, we were lucky we had a good infrastructure in place. We hired Kane Communications to develop our brand platform. When I first got to the organization about a little over 3.5 years ago, we developed our mission, our vision, our values, and we took a 6-month process to do that. And we involved our staff, we involved our board, our partners, congregations to do that new mission, vision, and values. And we also put together a communications plan. So I think that all really set us up to be ready to make sure that we had frequent communication with our staff. So we had lots of internal communications to let them know, what we knew about this pandemic. Which was unprecedented. There's not a roadmap that we can use to go through these challenges. So we looked at CDC guidelines, we reached out to partners, and we met daily with our staff to ensure that we could provide them with the most updated information that was available. In some cases, we received questions from our staff. Many times we were able to answer them, but sometimes we were not. And we would pause and make sure we had the most accurate information before we got back to them. So just lots of frequent communication, both internally and then externally with our partners as well, including our donors, our contracted partners. We thought that was important as well, to let them know of the challenges that we were facing and the help and support that we would need in order to move the organization forward in the midst of this pandemic.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Having frequent communication is very important, especially in such an unusual and hard time. Jeff, I would love to hear your perspective on this. I know you guys work with a lot of nonprofits, but I know you manage your own team at Lighthouse Counsel.
Yeah, for both, it's really to us, it's a silver lining, or it can be, it should be. From this terrible time, the pandemic, how do you communicate internally? So, in a lot of ways, there's real positives that organizations that embraced it, like Hector's organization, can really come out stronger. And there's a lot to be said about authenticity and that personal touch, whether it be with the brand or with leadership. And so, when you see your leaders that you're used to seeing around a conference table at home with kids running in the background and dogs and other things, it really brings a personal touch. We've seen some organizations be very intentional and some not. And some of our clients moved to remote work, and some because of the nature of their work in healthcare and other areas, they really didn't to a significant degree. But the most successful organizations that we saw really, and again, this echoes Hector, they did their research, they created a plan, guidelines, communicated with and even coached their staff and gave the staff the resources that they need to be successful. For our team, most of our senior consultants work remote anyway, and so that was nothing new. But we did increase our communication to the team through weekly emails, through phone calls, outreach, virtual meetings, of course, and building in fun and the interaction that people were missing. And then we would reach out to our team and to our clients on a regular basis with care packages and things, just to let them know that we're there and that we're thinking of them.
That's awesome, Jeff. A little bit of fun is really important, and especially in light of what we're facing, where there's so much uncertainty, there's so much anxiety. Our lives have been disrupted in major ways, and there's not lots of opportunities to gather with your friends and do things that are fun. So I really like the fact that you're including fun in there. We've tried to do a little bit of that. I think we need to do a lot more, though.
Yeah. And Jeff, I love how you sent out a little, in such a hard time, it's just nice to know that somebody's thinking about you. All right, great. So Hector, in regards to, managing your staff during the pandemic, what were the biggest challenges that you guys faced? And, what would you say were the biggest lessons you learned along the way?
Yeah, clearly the biggest challenge was to ensure that the health and well-being of our staff. And this is really unprecedented situation. And so we didn't know what to do, to be honest, in the beginning, other than just making sure we're looking at CDC guidelines, reaching out to our partners, learning from them and what they were doing, not only locally, but across the country, reaching out to, like, for example, Lutheran Social Services of America, the Alliance of Children and Families, Children in Strong Families, these national associations that had best practices, and they had a lot of influence and information coming from DC and CDC. So we relied on them. And so that was something that was important. Again, our number one priority was the safety and health and well-being of our staff. We wanted to make sure we could get them the right information as quickly and as responsibly as possible. I think some of the things that we learned along the way is, just the frequent communication we've had with our staff during this time. We were meeting daily to just keep them up to date, and everything that we knew we wanted to share with them. We also wanted to be responsive to all of their questions that they had, and there were many in the beginning, and it did dwindle down over time. But we realized that through this process, we have become one LSS, not a program, not a division, not a region, but really one LSS, really ultimately trying to work with each other to improve the health and well-being of all, the common good of all, and really looking at the organization as one. So I would say that frequent communication, that authentic communication, is something that we want to continue to do.
Awesome. And Jeff, what about you?
Well, it's been, interesting. And of course, as Hector said, first and foremost, safety for clients and for our team as well. And but one thing that we've definitely seen is, there's a lot of conversation about the pandemic and remote work, and but one size doesn't fit all, and in terms of the ability to work effectively remotely, and find that some people are very effective at it and have always done it, and certain positions in an organization are better suited. I know, take my consultant hat off, but from a consumer standpoint, and I've talked to friends and colleagues, in a time when you would think intuitively that customer service would be one of the easiest things to transfer. I've had great frustration trying to get a live person on the phone and someone who can help me. I bet 15, 20 times during the pandemic with, purchases or different circumstances. So, so it's also technology, but it's definitely, important to think about that some positions really are easily transferable, adaptable to remote work, and some aren't. And some people are and some aren't. And one of the things we do as a team is we have a advisor who's a corporate psychologist, and this wonderful lady helps guide me in my decisions and our team and how we function. And even when we hire somebody, she'll interview them and do a profile. And the reality is that, some people have to have a lot of direction, supervision, hands-on, someone giving them the task even throughout the day. And some people can work very independently. We're wired differently. And I think that's an important learning, is that it's not one size fits all for the work from home transition during the pandemic.
Yeah, it is definitely not a one size all fits all. And I think, you're right. Everybody kind of works their own pace and they work differently. So it's something that the organization needs to adjust to. So, I mean, Jeff, I know you mentioned earlier that your consultants already work remotely, but as a whole, were you guys already set up to work remote? Just really had to, quickly pivot to.
Yeah, as a firm, we really were. Again, our senior consultants we have team meetings there, all over the country, and some are within proximity of our offices and some aren't. So we already were doing virtual meetings and in-person meetings and tasks. So that really didn't shift. The big shift was for those of us who were in the office day to day, and we made the change, for safety, to work remotely initially. We're now back in the office with great precaution, but for us it was a pretty seamless transition in terms of technology and the resources.
Great. And how about you, Hector? How was the adjustment for you guys?
Yeah, we had some, prior to the pandemic, we had some staff occasionally working from home, maybe in the dozens, but now this required hundreds of people needing to work from home. In our organization, we have about 800 staff. And so it was a big adjustment for us. We needed to implement new technologies, increase our capacity with Zoom. We implemented telehealth, which gave us the vehicle to serve thousands of individuals that would not had those services if it wasn't for that platform. Also, our staff needed to modify their homes, enhance their homes with technology, and we supported them with that. But they also needed to adjust their daily lives and routines. So we try to provide them with a lot of support, ongoing support, as our daily lives are different now as a result of this pandemic.
And Hector, on the technology side of things, what did that look like? Did you have to adopt new staff management, project management, or staff communication software? And along those lines, did you have a specific IT person or a department that could help guide you through the process?
Yeah, we had good project management processes in place prior to the pandemic, where we had project charters and sponsors and reporting mechanisms. And we also adopted, or we are on the initial stages of adopting ADKAR as our change management model. But we really accelerated that initiative as a result of the pandemic. And ADKAR stands for, again, it's a change management model. ADKAR is an acronym for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So we use that model as we were going through this pandemic. In terms of IT, we had to enhance our systems, Zoom for one-on-one meetings, staff meetings. We did town hall meetings. We are in Wisconsin and Upper Michigan, so we have a large territory to cover and people all across the state of Wisconsin. in Upper Michigan. So we use Zoom as a platform to reach out to lots of staff. And again, telehealth, implemented telehealth within a month that gave us, that brought in about $500,000 of revenue per month. So it helped us on the revenue side, but more importantly, gave us a vehicle to serve thousands of individuals that needed us now more than ever. We do have an IT team. It's very small, and a leader there. We also brought in a consultant that helped us through this transition, and we have a very capable and smart chief integration officer that oversees all of centralized services, including IT, that really helped us through this process.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, really happy to hear that it seems like you are running a very well-oiled machine over there. So the transition, I'm sure, was, almost seamless.
Well, not quite. It sounds, a lot of challenges throughout the way. And one thing I also wanted to say is, this is really pretty amazing, is that our IT team, our help desk, they have gotten hundreds of calls during this time, right? Mm-hmm. Individuals now working from home, many calls from me too, for support and help that I needed. And they have a 99% satisfaction rating for all of the services they provided. So we're so thankful for the great services that they have provided this whole organization, generally speaking, but especially during this pandemic.
Oh, that's so great to hear. And Jeff, what's the technology look like over at your organization?
It's been interesting. One of the silver linings has been we were in a mode to move we have at least weekly, formal calls with every client on a project, and we were pushing to move those to video, and we were having mixed success. So one of the silver linings of the pandemic is everybody's been receptive now, and we've moved those, and so that'll be a lasting impact in terms of technology. We have a IT company that supports us, but I'd say that a lot of the day-to-day, and it was an impact, would be our wonderful VP for operations has become an IT coach for a lot of and I won't make any comments about ages, but for some of us, I think tomorrow he's got 2 people coming to the office bringing their laptops. They've got new laptops, and but we did what a lot of folks did, and it sounds like that Hector may have done. You embrace Zoom and you try the different plans, and now we're actually moving to Microsoft Teams, and we found a few small glitches with that in terms of people not having compatibility, but it's been really pretty smooth overall. And the big piece for us was technology around the Zoom and meetings, and a lot of our clients were moving to, and our recommendation to doing video work. So even for us to have, we got a little mini studio in our office now with backdrops, microphones, mics, and all that, and the camera. So the video technology is probably the biggest, and then the second would be the adaptation to the platform Zoom at first, and now we're embracing Teams.
That's great. Yeah, video has been, I'm sure everyone can agree that video has been kind of the lifesaver through all this, because now you're able to have some kind of human interaction rather than just hearing someone's voice over a phone. It brings a little bit of an intimacy to the conversation, which is great. And at NonProfit Pro, we also use Teams, and I think it's been wonderful to be able to communicate with internally through that.
We may be calling you with a question or two.
We'll see if I can answer it. I can direct you to our IT people. All right, great. So Hector, it seems like you guys are doing a great job at managing your staff internally and kind of continuing to strengthen that camaraderie and that communication throughout the organization. But what would you say your strengths are as an organization on staff communications and staff relations, and what areas would you like to work more on?
Yeah, thank you. I think that the fact that we were proactive in hiring King Communications to develop a new brand platform, that vision, mission, and values, our communications plan that we had in place, I think that provided us with strength on the communications and relations side that helped us be semi-ready for this major pandemic that hit us. We've been also just really proactive with internal communications, trying to get the input of our staff on major decision-making items. So lots of surveys and town hall meetings and focus groups. So really the involvement of our staff in the decision making has been a key priority for ours. This is not a top-down approach. This is an approach of really co-creating our future together. And we've also begun to do more external communication, sharing the wonderful stories and the impact we have at Lutheran Social Services of Wisconsin and Upper Michigan. We serve over 30,000 individuals on an annual basis. You know, a child in crisis who has nowhere to turn, a family in turmoil that's facing eviction, someone struggling with addiction or severe persistent mental illness, an elderly person or a person with a disability that needs just a little bit of help to live independently and successfully in their home, or a refugee that's fleeing from war and persecution. LSS has been the place to turn to for these individuals for 138 years and more. And so we've been trying to share the stories of the impact that we have externally with our partners, with our donors. I'd say some things that we want to continue to improve upon all of that I just shared with you, internal and external communication. It is a journey. Some things that we can work on. I want to start off with what I heard Jeff talk about, fun. I think we need to put that on top of our radar more often as we're going through this pandemic. So I thank you, Jeff, for sharing that. I want to put this on the top of our list of things that we need to work on. We also just more virtual town hall meetings to make sure we're a large organization. We're all over Wisconsin and Upper Michigan, just to make sure that we're not losing focus of people all around the state and being closely in touch with them, starting off with seeing how they're doing. How are the people we are serving doing? And what do they need to be successful in the midst of this pandemic? And lastly, equity, diversity, and inclusion. We want to strengthen our communications through the lens of servant leadership as we embark upon equity, diversity, and inclusion, starting with awareness, listening, empathy, healing, and the growth and development of others. So this is something that we're working on. It's a journey, but we're feeling good of where we're at right now.
Fantastic. Jeff, what would you say Lighthouse Counsel's strengths are, and what areas would you guys like to work on?
I think our strengths are, we've always had a strong culture. We just have an incredible team, and we're very fortunate with that. But one of I think the challenges is when you map out a year, or you try to at least, I've heard people say that 2020 was the fastest and the slowest year they've encountered at the same time. So I think one thing is just the systems in place, and we're a much smaller team than Hector, but we know what we want to accomplish in terms of outreach and communications, but you really, you have to calendar it. And that's something that we probably want to work on a bit, because you don't want a week to go by without a personal contact and a phone call with a colleague. And, you know, he or she may be used to working remote or may not, but there's definitely more stress and more questions and more help and more coaching needed, and just the time to make that happen. So that would be the area that we'd like to work on, is to be sure that we're more systematic in achieving those goals.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, you know, everyone had to pivot really quickly, and we're all learning, and this year we'll continue to learn. So we have a lot of time to perfect the things that, we need a little bit of work on. And I appreciate you guys both for sharing that. And so we've talked about a lot of stuff today, some really great stuff. But Jeff, I'll have you get started here. If there's one piece of advice you could give to nonprofits from our conversation today, what would it be?
Oh, can I stretch it to more?
I'll give you 3.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think one is just the one size doesn't fit all, and you got to know who the people are and adapt and help them. I think 2 would be, understand that your team is under stress. Whether it be their personal concern because of health issues or age or family members or just the whole, conversation and chaos in society. I mean, people are stressed. So understand that. And then I'd say 3 would be, to get help. Don't be, and Hector's brought in experts, but don't be afraid to, if you need extra human resources help, you need corporate psychologists like we use, you need technology professionals, then leverage and get these resources to be successful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. And Hector?
Yeah, I would say, and I wrote a thought leadership article, several months ago that talked about this. And I think that our sector right now is poised and needs to adapt, innovate, and collaborate. So starting with adapt, we have to, our staffing models, we had to adjust our staffing models very fast. So people from working into the office, now working from home, and all the adjustments that were needed to be made. And so we have to be flexible with our staffing models to ensure that we're as efficient and as effective as possible. And I think we learned something through this pandemic. But also our service delivery models for the people we serve. We need to be constantly thinking about what are the best approaches to have the biggest impact in the most efficient way in our delivery for the people that we serve. Innovate. I talked about us where we implemented telehealth, and that added significant amount of revenue, but also allowed us the platform to serve thousands of people if it wasn't for that platform. So we need to innovate in our sector more, and this provided us with an opportunity to do that. But also on the innovation front, we need to diversify our revenue. So we're so heavily reliant on government. When I got to the organization, we were over 90% reliant on government. Now it's more in the 80%. But we are trying to embark on working with insurance and healthcare for those individuals that are falling through the cracks and are heavy utilizers of costly services. So we're saying, let us work and manage that population, improve the outcomes, and then we can share in some of the savings that would come through Medicaid dollars. And lastly, collaborate. Collaborate internally with your staff. Have frequent communications with them. Co-create your vision, your direction, your strategy, not only during this pandemic, but just generally speaking. Collaborate with our partners. Our partners are the county, the state, and they are facing significant challenges in the midst of this pandemic, just like we are. So we didn't want to come to them and say, hey, we need these resources. We need more money, because we knew that they were having challenges. So we partnered up with them to make sure that we could do things as in an efficient and effective manner. And also our donors, collaborating with them. One of the first things we ask them is, how are they doing? Do they need us? Because in this pandemic, many of our lives are different. And so we did that with them. And I have to say that the generosity of our donors has been such a special thing to see during this pandemic. So again, my advice is adapt, innovate, and collaborate.
Awesome. And actually, Hector, we ran that piece that you wrote on adapt, innovate, and collaborate on NonProfit Pro. So I'll be sure to link it somewhere. when
Thank
we
you.
post when we publish this podcast, so people can have access to it, because it was a really great article and like a new way of thinking about leadership.
Great. Thank you so much.
Of course. So that about wraps it up for today's podcast episode. First, I want to thank our listeners for listening in. And Hector and Jeff, it's been so fun having you both on, and it's been great to learn from you. And so thank you so much for joining us today in the Nonprofit Voice and sharing your insights and expertise on, strengthening staff communications and relations.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And nice to meet you, Jeff.
Great to see you, Hector. Look forward to meeting in person, my friend.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
So on behalf of Nonprofit Pro, we will see you on the next episode of the Nonprofit Voice. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Nonprofit Voice. You can listen to more episodes of the Nonprofit Voice at nonprofitpro.com/podcast/the-nonprofit-voice. And remember, for your convenience, you can stream any and all episodes of the Nonprofit Voice on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify.